Welcome back, demigods, monsters, and gods alike. The quest has begun. Here's everything you may have missed in Percy Jackson Episode 3. We visit the Garden Gnome Emporium. Before we jump into Episode 3, here's a few Easter eggs that I missed from Episode 1 and 2 that you guys pointed out. When Percy and Grover are having lunch, Grover mentions that Percy can speak to Mr. Kane. This is most likely a reference to the Kane Chronicles, potentially either Julius or Amos Kane. In Episode 2, Mr. D is wearing a leopard print shirt, most likely a reference to Seymour, the leopard head that Mr. D has on the wall in the big house. On a bead on Luke's necklace, we can see a tree representing the first summer Luke came to camp, and the tree is, of course, for Thalia. Okay, now on to Episode 3. This episode changed a lot from the book. All the main plot points are there, but the way in which they happen are different. But it's a good change, as the episode delivers some very powerful messages. If I had to pick one theme for Episode 3, it would be trust and friendship. Who can we count on, and who can we call a friend? And this message is so powerful. Our episode starts in the big house attic, where the Oracle is housed. Right away, we can see the attic is filled with objects. These objects are spoils of war. When a demigod defeats a monster, usually something is left behind. This is known as a spoil of war. For instance, the Minotaur horn was a spoil of war, and we can see that horn has been added to the collection in the attic. We then get our first look at the Oracle, and despite Percy calling her a Halloween decoration, this thing is the scariest thing I've seen in a long time. Just the way it moves, no thank you. Percy also reveals here that a quest must have a prophecy for it to be an official quest. The Oracle then spews green smoke, just like in the book. However, unlike in the book, the smoke takes the shape of Gabe. Why? Maybe it represents something Percy fears, much like he fears going on this quest. But honestly, this is the first change I'm not on board with. I wanted the creepy Oracle voice, not Gabe's. To be honest, it's a little bit anticlimactic. Percy then must choose his quest mates. Up first, he chooses Annabeth, stating that she won't hesitate to do what needs to be done if the quest calls for it. Or at least that's the reason he gives for the time being. When it's time to pick the third member, we cut to Grover, who is picking up Pegasi poop, a punishment from Mr. D. Grover is talking to the Pegasi, a nod to how Grover can converse with animals in the book. Percy then comes to tell Grover that he picked him for the quest, because Percy trusts Grover. And it's a really heartwarming scene where these two friends make up. We then get another look at Cabin 3, and the cabin has a fountain right in the middle. Very fitting. As Percy is packing, Luke comes in and gives Percy with the flying shoes. And just like in the book, they are activated with the word Maya. Before our heroes head out on the quest, we can see Annabeth next to Thalia's tree, taking a moment. And Grover reveals that Thalia never made it to camp because she was being chased by monsters. But instead of dying, her father took pity on her and turned her into a tree. Grover also mentions how a satyr failed to protect her. Our heroes then hop in a taxi, and as Grover is talking about Olympus, the Empire State Building is reflected in the window. An absolutely genius storytelling move to foreshadow the end of the episode. Our heroes then board a bus to New Jersey. And thank the gods they fixed this scene. When the bus is attacked in the books, it's described as the bus barreling out of the Lincoln Tunnel and turning off onto a forested road. And I have been saying for years, there are no forested roads near the Lincoln Tunnel. So I'm really glad that they fixed this. The bus pulls into a rest stop and Annabeth decides to get some snacks. Percy wants to join, but Annabeth says to stay by the bathroom in the bus as the smell hides him. A great way to tell us that half-blood smells can be hidden by extreme odors. Percy still doesn't agree, and Annabeth and Percy argue. These two are not getting along. Grover tries to placate both, but ultimately Annabeth wins and Percy sulks. Annabeth, who has never been in the outside world, is absolutely blown away by the choices in the convenience store, and it's a really cute scene where she ends up buying everything. As she's buying the snacks, she senses a monster, showing us that once again, Annabeth is always thinking ahead. When Annabeth gets back to the bus, she puts on her Yankees cap of invisibility and confronts Alecto, aka Mrs. Dodds, who is sitting in the front of the bus. Mrs. Dodds wants Annabeth to turn on Percy and hand him over to her, but Annabeth refuses, and Annabeth tells the others to escape out the window. Alecto then tries to get to our heroes but is blocked by people. And we get this amazing scene where Alecto is seen from the demigod's perspective and then from the mortal's perspective, a great representation of the mist. So much better than this. A perfume bottle? What were they thinking? Then a second fury sweeps in through the window and Annabeth expertly throws a knife into her chest, and our heroes are able to escape into the forest. Now, there is one complaint I do have in this scene. In the books, it was Percy who defeated the Fury, not Annabeth. My fear is Annabeth may suffer from the Legolas effect, where they take achievements away from other characters to make already badass characters even more badass. Annabeth is plenty cool without giving her Percy's achievements on top. I would have liked for Percy to kill a Fury in this scene, as I feel Percy hasn't really gotten a chance to show off his skills yet, unlike in the book. But there's still plenty of episodes to go, so I may be jumping the gun. After our heroes are escaped, they're wandering the woods of New Jersey. And we get this line from Percy.
And we're wandering through a forest. I didn't even know they had forests in New Jersey.
Perhaps a nod to the fact that there are no forested roads near the Lincoln Tunnel. Or maybe just a nod to this very similar line in the book, where Percy says, "We shot off the highway through half a dozen traffic lights and ended up barreling down one of those New Jersey rural roads where you can't believe there's so much nothing right across from New York." Annabeth and Percy then once again argue. Annabeth accuses Percy of being afraid and Percy denies it until Grover smells something. Hamburgers. They then find Auntie M's garden gnome emporium. And unlike in the book, Annabeth right away figures out that it belongs to Medusa. As we pan the landscape, we can see this old pickup truck. Very similar to the pickup truck from the 2010 movie that Percy, Annabeth, and Grover stole after defeating Medusa. There's also a ton of statues, but all are of monsters and no humans. Our heroes are then cornered by Alecto, who has followed them. Alecto states that Annabeth should have taken her deal, and this confuses Percy. But before Alecto can attack, we are introduced to Medusa, and she's not what you would expect. Medusa offers our heroes sanctuary from Alecto, and Percy trusts her as he remembers the stories his mom used to tell him, how not all monsters are monsters. Once inside, this scene plays out very differently from the books. Medusa tells her story, how she views the gods as bullies, and honestly, she's kind of right. What Athena and Poseidon did to her was not fair. For those of you who don't know, here's a very quick recap of Medusa's story. Medusa worshipped Athena, but one day Poseidon came to her and told her that he was in love with her and convinced her to have relations in Athena's temple. Athena was not happy and turned Medusa into the monster that we know her as. Yeah, pretty messed up. Medusa says she can help Percy save his mom. This is news to Annabeth, who had no idea that Percy's mom was still alive. Percy then goes to talk to Medusa alone. Medusa offers Percy a deal, turn on his friends and save his mom. But Percy reveals who he truly is, loyal to his friends, and he flees Medusa. This is when Medusa goes on the attack. Up until this point, Medusa has been bathed in bright light, but here she's almost completely concealed by shadow, really enhancing the term from ally to threat. Our heroes can't go outside as Alecto is still there, so they hide in the basement, where all the human statues are. Much like Medusa, the wickedness is hidden inside. At this point, Grover finally puts on the flying shoes, and we finally get to see Grover use them, as the movie and the musical both changed this and gave the shoes to Percy. As we know from earlier in this episode, that should be impossible, as the sky is Zeus's domain, and Zeus does not like Percy. With Grover causing a distraction, Annabeth is able to put her Yankees cap of invisibility on Medusa, and Percy chops her head off. Hey, it's no iPod Touch, but I liked the teamwork. Percy then uses the head to turn Electo into stone. Grover then finds a statue of his uncle Ferdinand. And somehow this leads to our heroes once again fighting about what to do with the head mostly. Percy wants to leave the hat on it, and Annabeth reluctantly agrees. And then they all fight about how they've lied to each other. Annabeth lied about the deal with Electo, Percy lied about his mom being alive and why he's really on this quest, and Grover never told Percy that he was Thalia's satyr protector. And then Percy finally reveals why this all bothers him so much and what he's truly afraid of. The end of the prophecy, being betrayed by a friend. He chose Annabeth because he figured he'd never be friends with her, and he trusts Grover above all else. Grover tells Percy that he can't think like that. They need each other, or they're gonna end up like his uncle. Despite the fact that they all lied, when it came down to it, no one betrayed anyone. Annabeth didn't turn Percy over to Electo, and Percy didn't turn Grover and Annabeth over to Medusa. When everyone realizes this, they come to a truce. And then Percy gets an idea to ship the head to Olympus via Hermes Express, the same mail carrier used in the book. Annabeth and Grover are very against this. But when Percy offers Annabeth her hat back as a form of friendship, she relents. Percy also says, in a way, it's kind of like a tribute to the gods. In this scene, Percy is almost extending an olive branch, you could say. If you know, you know. And finally, the episode ends with an added scene not in the book. We see a mail delivery person enter the Empire State Building with the Hermes Express box containing Medusa's head. Once in the elevator, the mailman produces a key, and when he turns it, a new button appears for the 600th floor, Mount Olympus. An amazing way to tell us where Olympus is. But wait, it gets better. The mailman is none other than Hermes himself, played by Lin-Manuel Miranda. This episode does such a great job of laying the groundwork and hinting at Percy and Annabeth's fatal flaws, Percy's loyalty and Annabeth's hubris. This episode may have been different than the books, but it gave old scenes new meaning, and I absolutely loved it. It makes you think about right and wrong, and these themes are reflected in our hero's journey. Absolutely brilliant storytelling. I give it a 9 out of 10. But let me know what you demigods thought of it down below in the comments. But until episode 4, I'm signing off. So please, Half-Bloods, always remember to stay safe.